Hello.
Hi.
It's going to be super fun release manager AMA since I got you two. Hey team, everyone all right? Okay. We'll just wait a few minutes, see if we get any attendees. Now pass on a bit of feedback since you're pretty much all here. So earlier today I was in the infra quality kind of managers meeting. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but all the managers across the department. And yeah, huge kudos to all of you for continuing the consistency of these AMAs. I think that's the thing that Meg said is the most impressive thing about our AMAs. So great work. I don't think we've missed one of these for many years. I remember we had a period where we did cancel a few, but that was a really long time ago, like pre rollbacks. So huge credit to you all for those. We'll just give everyone a few minutes and see if they want to turn up. Hey, Sam. In fact, we are actually at time. Has anyone actually got anything they wanted to discuss or ask questions about? Because back in the day, this meeting was actually delivery office hours, and then we just made it public in case other people wanted to come and chat to us. So it doesn't actually have to be external questions. Like, is there anything inside delivery that people want to shout about, ask about, or just generally talk about? Sam, actually, I'm going to put you on the spot because we talked about this earlier, but this might be a better topic actually with our wider group, which is, should we chat about what would be a good way to capture the overall deployment process and how we share that?
You think the diagram's helpful to float and share as well?
Yeah, why not?
Cool.
Give people some context.
So onboarding is fun, right? Onboarding into delivery is very fun. As part of that, I've learned a lot from you all. And I'm still kind of mentally trying to untangle, deployments, release, security release, patches, and how all of those things interact together. And then all the other teams that we have kind of shelved responsibilities with and share, the end-to-end process with, being distribution, quality, like infrastructure and SREs, if there's incidents. It's been quite fun to pick through. So I had a go at creating a process diagram, which I'm sure you can all agree is a fantastic and kind of fun educational use of time. But really, one of the questions I had with a deployment and release process that spans so much of the organization, infrastructure, not infrastructure, not even anything to do with kind of engineering, particularly in some places. How do we start to kind of get an idea of what actually happens? What are the steps and where those steps are kind of owned? And bring those teams together to say, let's pick a box. For example, that packaging is in trouble and, something's going wrong on a regular basis. Who gets involved in packaging? Can we together for a quarter, for a milestone, work on this box and improve it and make it better, rather than trying to kind of attack and ingest the whole process at once? Because I think where we are is kind of in this vertical slice of not automation, but kind of the release manager tasks that have to be done on a regular basis. And whilst it's nice to have a view of the whole map, the bit that we can really get on board, control, and kind of change as delivery is this vertical slice. And the same is true, I guess, of quality, of distribution, who have their own vertical slice, that we all need to come together and collaborate on. So one of the questions I had was, does this seem like a good idea to get everyone on the same page? And how do we want to kind of contribute to and map this out in a way that makes sense? So we can start looking at those individual boxes. Do they make sense in our process? Can we get rid of them, evolve them, and can we do better, kind of thing? Is that a reasonably level explanation?
Pretty good. Yeah. I think it's a great question. Like, so, I mean, I guess we have got some people. So maybe this is like a kind of twofold question. So for people inside the team, does this feel like a useful activity? And then we got a couple of people outside the team who might have perspectives from, like, as someone who's not in delivery, what's actually useful to know.
In a brief 10-second, the way I started this map was taking our deployments page and just converting every step there into a box or a decision.
Thoughts? Myra, thoughts?
Can you share the link of
I
that?
was trying, but I have forgotten how to get to the chat from the sharing screen.
I'll drop it in for yourself. I think for Myra, don't worry too much about, like, think about this more at the concept level of, like, would it be useful for us to have something of this style, especially with the effort that will probably go into creating it, or other things that would be useful.
Yeah, and I'll drop out of sharing because the focus is definitely not completely on the diagram, but would a visual that we can all kind of get around and align on start to make sense to bring some of the teams to the table where we have multi-ownership things that we need to kind of coordinate and get aligned on.
It is enormous.
It is enormous, but it represents, like, the big picture of our processes and the deployments. And yeah, I think it could be a good idea especially for people that are onboarding, because right now our onboarding is not the best. We just throw people at a bunch of documentation and, try to wish them the best of luck. But yeah, having some sort of visual that puts all together, I think it will be useful. We do have a couple of maps that were created by another team member, but they are also a bit convoluted. So I think this one looks better. So yeah.
Yeah, there's crazy nuances as well for anyone on the call who's not super familiar with the release process and deployment kind of process, in that, releases are sort of their own separate thing, except security releases, because normally with a patch or, the monthly release version, something already has to be in GitLab.com, then it's packaged, put into, a tagged version number, right? But with security fixes, they have to go, through the security mirror into GitLab.com and then be patched into a version. So they almost happen in reverse order to what we expect from our other patch release processes. And I don't think that process dependency is particularly well captured across the different departments either. Yeah, good fun.
As a follow-up question, Sam, how was your onboarding into delivery? Like, what would in the magic world of the future, what should we do to onboarding?
I think it was the level of detail that we've got in some of the repositories and other stuff is really cool. And especially how the documentation is broken down into, user groups. If you're a release manager, this is the one. If you're an engineer, this is the one. If you're consuming on a different level, this is the one. But due to how GitLab search function works, it's kind of quite hard to discover some of that, that it exists if you don't know it exists. And then searching through the repositories is quite challenging. So I think we could do more to make that a bit easier. But I think that's sort of an overall GitLab challenge as well, is how do you make stuff that isn't in the handbook and on a specific Algolia index, discoverable and searchable. And the other things are the nuances of dog fooding, and then the pragmatisms and realities of we have to have ops.gitlab.net, because we can't deploy GitLab with GitLab because there'd be a point where it doesn't work, right? But then, kind of there's also a secret kind of a third build server where we do the builds, which is another component of that, which is, I think, kind of hidden away because it's very much part of what delivery need to operate and do the release and deployment kind of processes. But it's sort of not owned by delivery. So it ends up as almost an invisible piece that you learn about through osmosis, but is not openly documented kind of anywhere. And I think there's a few things like that where the lines blur cross group, cross organization, and those bits are very hard to discover. But within the vertical slice, I think everything is very well documented and thorough if you go through it. There's just a lot because it's a complex process, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's a very organic process as well, because a lot of it has grown over time. So does anybody want to verbalize a question? Feel free to just drop them straight in the agenda, but also if you want to just jump in and verbalize anything, please do so. If not, I'm really sorry, Sam. I actually have another question. This one's a little bit generic, but you may know an answer for this one. But it's something I was curious about. I saw the announcement recently about the distinction between dog fooding and llama fooding. And I was actually not necessarily always not attempting to always make the product do absolutely everything, because we may not actually be the intended user. I thought that was quite interesting from the delivery perspective, because we do know there are at least some, maybe quite a lot of things we do in delivery that other users would never want to do. Like, I think it's reasonably rare that you would want to be running continuous deployment approach at the same time as having like a monthly package release, and some of our complexity comes from the two. But I was curious, or anyone, but maybe Sam, from a kind of product perspective, do we have any kind of sense of where does delivery sit in terms of that dog fooding versus llama fooding category?
Cool, I'll go. I think there's two things that are a part of that kind of llama fooding discussion as well. We put out a feature or a product and we expect users to consume it in one way, and I think the CI stuff is a really good example that I'll try and get a link to. But Lyle in support kind of talked about how, instead of using the CI, workers and jobs to do any CI stuff, they used cron jobs to just kick off a whole bunch of process and project automation. And they're using our CI platform as something not unlike a Zapier. And actually, a lot of customers probably have that need as well. So where we've adopted and kind of forced weird work processes in, it could be fun to see actually if customers have some of the same needs as well. And I think with us, there are some practicalities around dog fooding. If we look at environments as an example, it's going to be challenging for us to use some of the proposed features because of how we have to run, our deployments, our environments off of ops.gitlab.net, and we can never really run them off of the, gitlab.com servers. I don't think there's a good answer on how we do some of those things. I think sometimes our product approach to customer facing only can hurt us a little in adopting some of the tools that our feature teams create there. But one of the things that's on my agenda massively is how do we kind of create some space to engage with other teams, share a bit of what we're doing, and seeing if there's anything we can really consume and use, or we can share out right to other stage teams. I think it's kind of a half answer.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Tom. Nels, do you want to verbalize?
Sure. What's llama feeding or fooding? And which announcement specifically was referring to that?
I'm trying to find, did I get the right animal? It is a llama, right?
Yeah, it was, I think it was in a what's happening at GitLab thread, and it was Lyle specifically. But he used a phrase, or used the phrase llama fooding to describe when we had radically diverged from what the expected use case was. And the dog fooding was the expectation that, you will use it this way that we have preordained, because this is the use case. We found, ourselves in a number of situations doing nothing even remotely similar to the, validated problem. But still getting some value out of how we were using it, even if in kind of an edge case way. I'll try and find it. I'm not sure how to spell llama.
See, I thought I knew, but I can't find it. I thought it was LLA.
Yeah, looking at the word, it looks wrong.
We'll try searching. There's no results come up, so I can't help you now. I don't know where the link is, but we'll try and find it for you.
Sam, you said it was Lyle who posted this?
Yes, it was in what's happening at GitLab, I think.
I think it was referring to something that a customer told him when he was explaining because I remember I've read this conversation as well, but I can't remember where. Basically, it was something about support using a scheduled pipeline to generate availability calendaring issues, something like this, some sort of a table with who is available for support when. And it was showing this to a customer, just say, well, you can do something like this. So it was kind of pitching the thing they were doing. And the customer said, this is not dog fooding, this is llama fooding. We are using it in not an unintended way compared to how everyone expects to run scheduled job or something like this.
I've pasted the link in the chat.
I apologize for digressing the conversation so significantly.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't apologize, because I did not know what llama fooding was either. I really appreciate you asking the question.
Agree. No, this is an AMA. Feel free to ask us anything.
I
I
didn't document it because I didn't open the doc, but just related to what he was just talking about. So I work with very large organizations in Silicon Valley, and I know that it's a lot easier for me to say than it is to do, but I could really envision documenting some of these different, some of these llama fooding examples, and what you do or how we do things. I could see that as very beneficial in providing to some of the larger organizations I work with, because GitLab overall, if you look at, if I want a cookie cutter follow GitLab flow and the auto DevOps and everything, as long as I'm doing a cute little web page, it works beautiful. But as soon as I start getting into a real robust solution, embedded software, or something that's going to impact tens of thousands of users, then it's different, right? And I'm constantly having to work with large orgs on, well, let's work outside the box and let's create this weird thing to use GitLab to solve your problem. and they're constantly asking for that kind of thing. And so, and they're constantly asking for documentation. So like I said, I totally respect it's easier to say than to do. But I could absolutely see this sort of process being documented, or this sort of use case being documented in some way beneficial to the larger organizations.
Yeah, I'd agree. The customers I've spoke with have definitely are building their platform on top of our platform and are doing the kind of convoluted stuff that may be helpful for us to share that we're doing too.
It makes
And
me
I will
think
say
it's
I've
almost...
seen,
Keep going.
I was just going to add kind of a +1 to documenting those weird use cases, because we have seen in certain areas, like I know specifically the package registry was discovered at one point, like, oh, you can store packages in this weird way that we didn't realize we even allowed. And we recorded a video of that, put it in the docs just in case, and then that's become actually the way that is now recommended to use the package registry. So I think it's always beneficial to document anything that could be a use case.
So honestly, sorry to talk without having put an agenda point in here, but the dog fooding aspect of the GitLab product has always fascinated me, and I think it's pretty unique. Do we have are there any other examples of companies that produce a product where they do this kind of thing?
I think it's fairly not common, perhaps, but I've certainly worked in other places that would do something similar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
I think our openness highlights it particularly because you can really see it, and there are, you know, like our competitors Harness talk about how much they dog food, but with GitLab everything is transparent and you can see it happening in real time, right?
I feel like it really does inspire a lot of innovation in the product.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. It's been interesting over the last few years in delivery. It'll be interesting to see where we kind of go in the next few years. But, you know, seeing some of the features coming in that we've been able to adopt, like, you know, I think the parent-child pipelines and triggering those child pipelines was like, you know, massive help for us. And then like we've had some things that we've been able to contribute back into the product, but you know, it still feels like we're a little bit away from where we like ideally would like to be in terms of just the sheer number of features we have available. Great. Does anyone have a final question they would like to verbalize? No? Okay, in which case, before I let you all head off, so I updated the links at the very top of this agenda, just to add in a fourth link, which is the delivery group, like in progress and planned work. So we have a single epic, which is the sort of like landing point for absolutely everything going on in delivery. So all of our ongoing epics are linked there and they are automatically being updated each day. So you always have the latest, like we do a weekly status, but that pulls through each day. So you always have like the latest information about epics. And then we also are building up like what is coming up next for us, what work are we currently trying to like scope out, and what do we just sort of have in our like project backlog. So if you're curious about anything that's ongoing, feel free to take a look through there. And yeah, give us a ping if you have questions, or drop by our Slack channel, which is G_delivery, and ask us questions. Great. Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for all the discussions. Great to see you all. And hope you have a great rest of your day.